Every real estate agent loses deals they should have closed. Not because the client wasn't ready, not because the market wasn't right, because the agent didn't know how to handle the objection. And the client walked away, not because they didn't want to buy, but because nobody gave them a reason to move forward. Objections are not a dead end, they're invitations. Every time a client gives you an objection, they're telling you exactly what they need to feel comfortable moving forward. And the agents who understand that, who can hear the real concern underneath the objection and address it honestly, close more deals, build more trust, and builds better relationships. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 3 biggest buyer objections I hear in today's market and give you the exact word-for-word approach I use to handle each one. Not scripts designed to manipulate, real honest responses that actually serve the clients. Because that's the difference between a good agent and a great one. My name is Scott Coomer. I'm a real estate team leader based in Arizona. Let's get into it. Before I get into the specific objections, I want to reframe how you think about them. Most agents hear an objection and immediately go into defense mode. They start arguing with the client or they back off completely and give up on the deal. Neither of those responses serve the client. Here's what I've learned after years of working with buyers. An objection almost never means no. It means I'm not comfortable yet, I have a concern, I need more information, or more reassurance before I can move forward. Your job when you hear an objection is not to overcome it. Your job is to understand it. What is the real fear underneath this objection? What does this client actually need to feel confident enough to take the next step? When you approach objections from that place, your genuine curiosity and a desire to serve, the entire conversation changes. You stop feeling like a salesperson trying to close a deal. You start feeling like an advisor trying to help someone make one of the biggest decisions of their life. That's the mindset I want you to carry into every single objection conversation. Now let's get into 3 biggest ones I hear right now and exactly how I handle them. The first objection, and one of the most common ones I hear, is this: we're interested, but we're not ready to buy for about 8 months. We're still in our lease. And here's what most agents do when they hear that. They say, okay, no problem. Reach out when you're ready, and they move on. That is a massive mistake, because what just happened is a motivated buyer who reached out to you just got sent back into the wild with no connection, no relationship, and no reason to call you specifically when their lease is up. Someone else is going to get that deal. Here's how I handle this objection instead. I completely validate their timeline. I don't push back on it at all. 8 months is a real constraint. I respect that. But then I pivot immediately to selling the appointment, not the house. Because the goal of this conversation is not to get them to buy today. The goal is to get them to sit down with me in person or on Zoom so I can become their agent before someone else does. Here's the approach I use. Feel free to make it your own. I completely understand 8 months feels like a long way away, and you want to make sure you're not jumping into anything before you're ready. I respect that completely. Here's what I'd love to do though. Rather than waiting until you're 2 months out and feeling rushed, let's sit down now and build a roadmap together. I want to understand exactly what you're looking for, walk you through the full buying process so there are no surprises, and help you identify what neighborhoods, price points make sense for your situation. The reason I like to do this early is simple. The longer we wait, the fewer options you'll have when your lease is actually up. Inventory moves fast, and the buyers who are prepared and pre-approved are the ones who get the home they actually want. This meeting costs you nothing. It just means you'll be ahead of everyone else who waits until the last minute. That's it. Simple, honest, focus entirely on serving their best interests. You're not pressuring them to buy before they're ready. You're giving them a compelling reason to connect with you now so that when they are ready, you are already their agent. The 8-month objection is not a rejection. It's an 8-month head start if you handle it right. The second objection, and the one I've heard more than almost anything else over the last couple of years, is this: we want to buy, but the interest rates are just too high right now. That objection sounds like it's about rates, but in my experience, it almost never actually is. Here's what I mean. When a buyer says the rates are too high, what they're really saying is, I'm worried about what my monthly payment is going to look like. The rate is just the number they've attached to that fear. And if you argue about rates, if you try to convince them that the rates aren't that bad, you're arguing about the wrong thing. You're not addressing the real concern. So here's how I redirect this conversation to what it actually is about. I completely hear you on rates, and I want you to know that concern is totally valid. Rates have moved a lot, and it's natural to be thinking about what that means for your payment. Can I ask you something though? When you say the rates feel too high, what monthly payment would you feel comfortable with? What number would actually work for your budget? And then I stop talking and I listen, because once they give me the number, now I have something real to work with. Now I can have an actual conversation about how to get them to that payment. And there are more ways to get there than most buyers realize. Option 1, builder incentives. Many builders right now are offering significant interest rate incentives, buying down the rate on new construction to make payments more manageable. This is a real option that a lot of buyers don't even know exists, and it can make a significant difference in the monthly payment. Option 2, seller concessions. In the right market conditions, you can negotiate for the seller to contribute towards the buyer's closing costs, which the buyer can then use to buy down their interest rates. Let me give you a real example from my own business, because I think this makes it more concrete than an abstract explanation could. I recently negotiated $41,000 in closing costs paid by a seller on behalf of my buyer. $41,000. My buyers use that money to buy down their interest rate significantly and got to a monthly payment they were genuinely comfortable with. They bought the house they're in right now, and they would never have gotten there if I accepted the interest rate objection at face value and moved on. The rate objection is not a dead end. It's the beginning of a creative conversation. Your job is to understand what payments work for them and then show them the path that can get them there. That is what a great buyer's agent does. The third objection, and one that stops a lot of potential buyers before they even get started, is this. We want to buy, but we just don't have the money for a down payment. This one breaks my heart a little because it's one of the most common reasons buyers don't pursue homeownership. And it's also one of the most solvable problems in real estate. Most buyers believe that they need a significant amount of money saved up before they can even consider buying a home. That is simply not true in most cases. And when I hear this objection, my first response is always to open a door the buyer didn't know exists. I really appreciate being upfront about that. And I want you to know that this is more common than you think, and there are real options available that most people don't know about. Before we rule anything out, can we sit down and let me walk you through a few things? Because depending on your situation, we might be closer to buying than you realize. And then I walk them through the three main tools I use for this exact situation. Tool 1, seller paid closing costs. In many transactions, especially in markets where sellers have some flexibility, you can negotiate for the seller to contribute towards the buyer's closing costs. This reduces the amount of cash the buyer needs to bring to the table at closing, sometimes significantly. A buyer who thought they couldn't afford to buy might find that with seller concessions, their out-of-pocket costs at closing are much more manageable than they expected. Tool 2, down payment assistance programs. I work with lenders who specialize in down payment assistance programs. These are real programs, often state or locally funded, that provide qualified buyers with funds to cover all or part of their down payment. This is not a loophole. It's not too good to be true. These programs exist specifically to help people who want to own a home, but they don't have the full down payment saved up. And the lenders I work with know how to identify these programs a buyer qualifies for and walk them through the entire process. Tool 3, free credit repair services. Sometimes the down payment isn't the only barrier. Sometimes the buyer's credit score needs a little work before they can qualify for the best down payment assistance programs. The lenders I work with also offer free credit repair services, which means if a buyer needs some credit improvement to qualify for a program that covers their down payment, we have a path to get them there. It might take a few months, it might take longer, but there is a path. And knowing these paths exist, having someone in their corner who can walk them through it is the difference between a buyer who gives up and a buyer who eventually gets into a home. The no down payment objection is one of the most emotionally loaded objections you'll hear because underneath it is usually shame. The feeling of not being where they thought they'd be financially. Handle it with compassion. Handle it with solutions, handle it like someone who genuinely wants the help, and you will convert buyers that other agents gave up on. Let me bring this together with the three biggest buyer objections and exactly how to handle each one. Option 1, we're in a lease for 8 months. Don't let them go. Sell the appointment. Give them a compelling reason to sit down with you now, because the longer they wait, the fewer options they'll have when the lease is up. Use this conversation to become their agent before anyone else does. Option 2, the interest rates are too high. It's almost never actually the rates, it's about the monthly payment. Ask what the payment feels comfortable, then show them the path to get there. Builder incentives, seller concessions, and rate buydowns are all real tools that can solve what looks like an insurmountable problem. Objection 3, we don't have money for a down payment. This is one of the most solvable problems in real estate. Seller paid closing costs, down payment assistance programs, and free credit repair services through the right lender can open doors buyers didn't know existed. Handle it with compassion and with solutions. Here is the mindset I want you to carry into every objection conversation. An objection is not a no. It's a question in disguise. It is a client asking you, can you help solve this problem? Your job is to say yes and then show them how. If you're a real estate agent who wants to get better at handling objections, at turning hesitant buyers into confident ones, this is exactly the kind of thing I love to coach agents through. Because objection handling is a skill. And like every skill, it gets better with practice, with feedback, and with someone in your corner who has handled these conversations hundreds of times. I do one-on-one Zoom calls with agents who want to sharpen their skills and build a business that converts at a higher level. No pitch, no pressure, just a real conversation about where you are and what getting better actually looks like at your specific situation. The link to book directly on my calendar is in the description below. It takes about 30 seconds to book a time that works for you. And if this video gave you something you can use in your next buyer conversation, subscribe to this channel. I post content every week for real estate agents who want to get better at the real skills that drive real results. I'm Scott Coomer. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.